and he's got the Coca-Cola bottle sitting on the podium and lecturing everybody, and it ain't going to happen, and all that stuff. That guy, there's no possible way could have won as much as he did with 19, 20, and 21-year-olds without being somewhat relatable to 19, 20, and 21-year-olds. There's no way possible. But we never saw it because, well, college football is kind of a secret society. Coaches love secrecy. It is the one place where you can kind of have, in sports anymore, where you can kind of have a sanctuary if you choose to have one, right? Brenden, what other sport in the world could you have closed practices and only play once a week, right? You can have a sanctuary in college football. NFL, it's pretty much NFL policy that media members are available at practice, and teams have figured out you can also sell tickets to practice, and that's why when you watch training camp with the Seattle Seahawks and you see the big old berm there, or you watch Hard Knocks and you see the Chicago Bears and their training camp, and they're like, let's put up some bleachers, let's sell some tickets, let's sell some concessions, let's make some money while we're just practicing. But also in the NFL, media is allowed at practice. It's NFL media policy, and they set their own policy.
Very different.
Can't have closed practices. Now, there are rules and regulations, and trust me, I was well-versed in the rules when I covered an NFL team. It was like, you see somebody get injured, you just don't say a word. That was always the weird, like, sitting there and doing a live show at, like, Seahawks training camp, and then you get the list. The list, and they come to you, and they hand you the list, and it was like, if you see any significant injuries, you are not to talk about it until the injury report comes out. If you see any trick plays, you are not allowed to record or talk about or describe any trick plays. You get the whole list, but you're still allowed to watch. Somebody is there. People are watching.
There are still things you can't report on an NFL practice too? Even though you can see it with your eyes?
Oh, yeah. Especially injuries is the big one.
Interesting.
You see somebody go down, get carted off. You're like, yeah, you're not allowed to say anything and report anything until the injury report comes out. And there's not, like, we got the list of, like, you can't talk about trick plays, but here's the deal. We never saw any. They might have been running a couple of interesting special team stuff, but you never saw any. But NFL practices are open. Basketball, play too many games. You can't have a sanctuary. You play too many games. Baseball, the same way. You play too many games. College football, you can have a sanctuary, which is just 5 days out of the week. Because I would assume you get a day off 5 days out of the week from this time to this time. It's just coaches, football staff, players. That's it. That's all. Media's not allowed in. Fans aren't allowed in. It's football staff, it is coaches, and it is players. And you can actually, I would assume, as a coach, maybe let your personality shine a little bit. Maybe let your hair down a little bit because everybody understands, hey, it's our little bubble here. So there was no way that Nick Saban could have possibly acted the way that he acted at the podium, lecturing media members, wagging the finger, and still be able to recruit the way he recruits, right? You have to have some kind of charm. You have to have some personality to be able to sit there and talk to a mom and a dad and a potential five-star recruit and be able to charm them to come to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, right? And
it requires some charm.
It has to. So we all knew, like, there had to be some kind of charm from Nick Saban. And also, I don't believe you can have a successful football program in big-time college football and not have a somewhat personal connection with most of your players, if not all of your players. Every football coach has always talked about that. Dan Lanning can't stop talking about it. It's like it's having a personal connection to your players. It's why Colorado's not going to work. You can't have the CEO celebrity head coach who goes out on a book tour and then shows up after assistant coaches have been running practice and tell everybody this is how it's going to be. These are very emotional because they're 19 and 20. Remember how you were when you were 19 and 20? I was so emotional.
Very much so.
These kids are too emotional. They're not going to follow you. So we always kind of knew that there was something that Nick Saban was cooking up at Tuscaloosa, and I think we're kind of seeing it now. Because I'm sitting there watching him with Eberflus and talking about the expectations and how he has dealt with quarterbacks in the past and the relationship that he has had with quarterbacks, and I'm like, that is not the guy that you see at the Grumpy McGrumperson in the post-game interview who just won by 48 and is still unhappy. Like, that's not that guy. That's a guy that's very much enjoying retirement and you could see it. And why I think he's going to be pretty good on College game day because you could see like, there it is. That's how he's been able to win. Yes, high expectations. Yes, all about more the process than the outcome. All of the stuff that you hear from coaches over and over. But also, like, you have to want to play for it. They always say, like, I'll run through a brick wall for that guy. Well, if that guy is constantly berating you and lecturing you and chewing your backside up and down without any other flip side, right? It's like the Force. Leadership, it's like the Force. I might be saying this wrong because Brendan's the Star Wars nerd and I'm not. But like the dark side and the light side of the Force, right? Leadership, every once in a while, you got to get chewed out. But also every once in a while, you got to look and be like, I'm better for it. And every once in a while, you have to look at there's a light side of leadership, which is like, all right, this guy knows what he's doing. We're following him. I don't know. It was just one of the biggest things I saw on Hard Knocks was seeing the appearance of Nick Saban and thinking like, man, there's the guy that won 7 championships. That's the guy, not the guy on the podium with the Coca-Cola bottle going like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're all idiots. You're spewing nothing but rat poison. The other thing is, I talk about it with the NBA a lot. How it's got to be just crazy to one day play in Portland and the next day you play in Sacramento. That's got to be weird. DeAndre Ayton, one day you are a Phoenix Sun. You were an Arizona Wildcat, and you were a Phoenix. You ever been to Portland? You need a bed? DeAndre Ayton, you're going to the Pacific Northwest. I don't know about that Ferrari up that steep driveway. Maybe a 4x4. I don't know. But that's got to be wild, right? Just one day. You're Malcolm. One day you're Malcolm Brogdon and you play for the Blazers. And then the next day you play for the Washington Wizards. And you're just gone. It's over. You live in D.C. now. That's what. Other side of that, did you see the cover of DJ Moore's extension? DJ Moore is at Bears practice. They got it on film on Hard Knocks. He's at practice as his agent's negotiating, and they're like called down. They're like to the guy, hey, can you tell Coach real quiet when they run special teams, have DJ Moore come up here. DJ Moore's at practice, Brenden. Goes trotting off of practice, is asked to come up to Ryan Pohl's office, who is the GM, and it's like, hey, congratulations, you just made $100 million. That's got to be nuts. And then he just goes back to practice. No champagne. And it's like, yeah, you just signed a deal. You are financially set for the rest of your life and likely generations behind you, as long as you don't buy a record label and don't start a restaurant. But you're financially viable Generational wealth. And then you just go back to practice. That's got to be nuts. That was the other thing I noticed from Hard Knocks last night. We may dive into some more stuff, but as you all well know, I've got college football on the brain. Lincoln Riley said something about USC and Notre Dame that I want to translate and talk about with Oregon and Oregon State. And again, are we once again in the college football world pulling the Jenga pieces out of the toddling tower? I'll tell you what we talk about next. 620 Rip City Radio. You know, when I was at Big Ten Media Day a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a guy. Just found his card actually in my backpack. Doug Maurice was on the show. Covered Ohio State for a long time, and we were talking about Ohio State football, and because they're out other than Oregon, like Ohio State, they might be ranked number 1 in the AP poll coming up. I think that's coming up next week. But it's between Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas. Any of those 4 schools could be ranked number 1 heading into the season. It is kind of interesting in college football this year. We really don't have a concise, clear, absolute number 1 because the 2 teams that played for the national title are rebuilding. Coaches, quarterbacks, offensive line, everything, right? Michigan is rebuilding. Washington's rebuilding. But Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Georgia. And any of those 4 you put at number 1, I don't think you're going to be too far off. But I was talking to Doug about Ohio State and kind of what's the temperature with Ryan Day and the head coach at Ohio State. Like how is it because while they are still nationally relevant, Michigan's now a national champion. Ohio State fans feel some sort of way about that. Ryan Day hasn't really been able to keep up with the absolute domination that Ohio State had over Michigan for a good chunk of a decade. And a big chunk of that was Jim Harbaugh, maybe Connor Stallions. But you could win 95% of your games. But if those losses come to Michigan, they come with some weight. And he said something that I thought was pretty profound, which was if you were to ask the average Ohio State fan, would you rather win the national championship or would you rather beat Michigan? They would say national championship, but they would pause. They would say national championship, but they would pause. I think if you were to ask the average Oregon fan, would you rather win the national championship or beat Washington? I think the pause would be less, but I think there'd be a pause. Because, again, I talk about the secret sauce of college football all the time. Rivalries is one of them. But in the new era of college football, are rivalries important? Do rivalries serve a purpose outside of the passion of the fan base, which is, by the way, significant? And do rivalries help or hinder your path to a national championship? The reason why I bring this up is recently Lincoln Riley has kind of come under fire. You remember him. He's the head coach at USC. Had a Heisman Trophy winner a couple of years ago. That guy was on Hard Knocks last night. He's had a couple of Heisman Trophy winners and has played in the college football playoff in his time at Oklahoma. Never quite got there at USC and is now going into the Big Ten. And I had USC's schedule pulled up. I have foolishly closed it. But looking at USC's schedule, in Big Ten play, they go to Michigan. They get Wisconsin at home. They go to Minnesota. Minnesota's not going to be bad, by the way. They get Penn State at home. They go to Washington, and obviously they have Nebraska, and I know Nebraska wasn't very good last year. I think Nebraska's getting better. But you think about, like, big-name programs in the Big Ten. USC goes to Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, Nebraska. Obviously, they're going to play UCLA at the close to the end of the season. And USC bookends their season with 2 non-conference games. One against LSU in Las Vegas that they desperately tried to buy their way out of. And LSU and ESPN both said, no, you don't get to do that. This is a massive game, opening weekend, because it's on Sunday, I believe. Because most Labor Day weekend, most games are going to be kicking off on Saturday. Sunday of Labor Day weekend, USC's playing LSU in Vegas.
That's awesome.
On ABC. For you, Brenden, for you and I and football fans in general, awesome. I don't know how awesome it is for the USC Trojans, who
Remember a couple years ago when
kind
Notre
of,
Dame played somebody big in Vegas to open the year? I forget who it was, but like that's kind of a cool deal that we're starting to get back to like those kickoff type games.
As fans, I like it. If I'm USC, I hate it. Because, again, you're already in a season where Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, UCLA, Nebraska are already on the schedule. And I don't want to say USC is limping into the Pac or into the Big 12. Freudian slips all over the place. Limping into the Big 10. But they're not coming in with the same USC Trojan swagger like they had in 05 or 04. USC is the biggest brand that the West Coast brought to the Big Ten, but they're not right now what USC used to be. And Lincoln Riley is got to be staring down the barrel of a season of Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Washington, Nebraska, and then now you got LSU to start the game, and then you end the season at home against Notre Dame. Traditional rivalry, right? Real quick history on the Notre Dame-USC rivalry. It was a game that was set up for recruiting purposes. Back in the day, outside of like Army, there were two places that could recruit nationally. And I'm sure there were probably a couple more. But for the most part, Notre Dame, because it was the most famous Catholic institutions, and they had a coast-to-coast footprint based upon the church. And
Catholicism helped.
Really helped.
Big time.
And also they had a guy named Newt Rockne, who, as their head coach, was kind of the first marketer. He made football videos and instructional videos. And then they also decided, hey, you know what would be nice to do? What if we played in California every year? So every year, Notre Dame would play either Stanford or USC at the end of the year. Certain years, they were at USC, sunny Southern California, right about November. Nice little treat for the boys at Notre Dame. Nice little recruiting tool, by the way, too. You come into California. Hey, California kids, are you Catholic? Do you like football? Come play for Notre Dame. You're going to play at home in November once a year. Because then you go to Stanford on the odd years. You go to so anyways. So that's why USC and Notre Dame became a rivalry. USC wanted to return the game, and that they always decided in October, when South Bend, Indiana is absolutely beautiful, that's when USC is going to go to Notre Dame. So that's why the schedule is the way it is. They play in the middle of the season in South Bend, and they play in sunny Southern California in November at the end of the season. On the other end, home and home, there's a Magic Jewels shillelagh. Brenden loves the shillelagh. There's a trophy game to it. It's a huge rivalry. UCLA fans hate it because it's a bigger rivalry than theirs.
It is.
But Lincoln Riley is now taking a look at the landscape of college football, Brenden, just like I think a lot of coaches are taking a look at the landscape of college football and saying, all right, I'm in the Big Ten now. Back when I was in the Pac-12, there were, if you're USC, not recently, but USC when they're at their best, in the Pac-12, you got to be better than what? About 2 or 3 other teams that are actual threats. When USC is humming, maybe Oregon, maybe Washington, maybe Stanford. Maybe every once in a while Arizona State pops up. Maybe every once in a while UCLA pops up. But for the most part, you can have a viable threat in the old Pac-12 from about 3 teams. Well, now you go into the Big Ten, and you still keep Oregon and Washington on the schedule, well, in the conference, and now you add Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, all of these schools. And then so Lincoln Riley is basically saying and hinted at, and he was slapped down, Are we sure playing Notre Dame every year is the best idea? Because while these rivalries hold tradition and these rivalries hold emotion and these rivalries mean a lot to all of us that grew up in college football, particularly those of us that have a stake in rivalry, in terms of making the college football playoff, not very practical. Rivalries outside of your conference and even rivalries inside of your conference is not a practical way to make the college football playoff. Another reason why Ohio State fans got mad at Ryan Day is because Ryan Day hinted at the fact, are we sure we want to play Michigan in conference every year? And Ohio State fans are, what are you talking about? We play Michigan every year. Because if I'm Ohio State, Brenden, I'm looking at the Big Ten schedulers because Oregon's going to play Washington at the end of every year. USC and UCLA are going to play each other at the end of every year. Michigan and Ohio State are going to play each other at the end of every year. Somebody at the end of the year gets to play Indiana. I think it's Purdue. I think Purdue and Indiana play each other at the end of every year. And if I'm Ohio State going like, boy, it sure would be nice if Indiana was our rivals. But instead we play this giant behemoth every single year. Are we sure we want to do that? Because the rest of the Big Ten schedule is fluid. You have the one teams that you play every year, and then you got to move around. Because rivalries in 2024 and beyond aren't really all that practical. Now, I bring this up to talk about Civil War. Civil War is going to be played in September. Oregon, right now, on paper, far and away the favorite in that game. Brenden, you just did a preview for that game.
Yeah, check it out, beaversedge.com.
Boom. Nice plug. And the reason why I brought this up is this year's not going to be a factor from an Oregon standpoint, or to be quite honest, and I don't mean this mean-spirited, from an Oregon State standpoint. Oregon State, whatever their goals are this year, college football playoff ain't one of them. I think there are other things. I don't think college football playoff is really one of them. I don't mean it mean-spirited. Not saying it couldn't happen. Crazy things could. But
I am surprised since their head coach is out there saying they're going to compete for the playoff.
You can say that now with a 12-team playoff, but I don't know if it's really in the cards, but we'll see. You know what makes it harder to get to the playoff? Playing Oregon Week 3. And let's just live in a hypothetical world. Because, again, I love this rivalry. I grew up with this rivalry. I am one of the old-school grumpy old man Duck fans who keep saying, no, while Washington is a passionate rivalry, Oregon State's the important one. Well, that's changed, obviously, because you play one at the end of the year now and you play one in September. But let's just live in a hypothetical world where if the reports are true that the Big 12, with maybe some hedge fund cash, is looking to expand. And the Big 12 next year comes in and says, hey, Cougs Beavs, you're with us. Welcome to the Big 12. And can we have your television network that you were awarded in the divorce settlement? It's like the Cougs and the Beavs, like they just like, we're divorcing. We got dumped. And the judge was like, yeah, the house and the car goes to them. And so they're like, great. And Big Ten comes and says, hey, you want to join our party? Let's just say that happens. Now you're in the Big 12. Far cry from a modified Mountain West schedule. And I do believe that teams like Oregon State and Washington State, if things align and things happen, absolutely they can make the playoff. We've seen seasons at the end of the year where Oregon State or Washington State are very close, if not would have been already in to a 12-team playoff. Is it beneficial to keep playing Civil War? I love the rivalry. I do. But is it practical? Is it beneficial?
For who?
That's what I'm at. For anybody. If Oregon's in the Big 10 and Oregon State's in the Big 12, and I know from a love and appreciation and passion standpoint that I come from, it's almost sacrilege to be like, no, we're not going to play that game anymore. It's like, why? But from a practical, black and white, take emotions out of it, objective, scheduling that game seems kind of silly. If you're Oregon and you are playing Wisconsin, well, this year you're playing Wisconsin, you're playing Ohio State, you're playing Michigan, you're still playing Washington every single year. Is it all that practical? So when I talk about the teetering Jenga block of college football, right? Regionality. Pull that Jenga piece out. College football is not regional anymore. College football is national. You think of transfers and NILs and all that stuff. Jenga piece kind of pulled out. Players are paid now. They're free agents. They're professionals. Ultimately, might be for the better. Who knows? Might be for the worse. But I've always said, even with all of the crazy changes that are going on in college football, the things that you will still have, you'll still have marching bands, you'll still have cheerleaders, you'll still have student sections, and you still have rivalries. It doesn't make practical sense to play USC Notre Dame if USC, and for that matter, Notre Dame, both want to make it to the college football playoff. No longer do those two schools need to play each other to get a leg up in recruiting. If you're Ohio State and Michigan, from a practical standpoint, do you want to play each other at the end of every year in the Big Ten when maybe you could get a year where you get Purdue? Or you get a year where you get Maryland? Or Indiana? Not going to sell as many tickets, and the secondary market's really going to stink, but it's going to be a much easier path to the college football playoff. And quite frankly, you might be playing Michigan in the Big Ten championship anyways. There could be a real possibility where Ohio State and Michigan play each other and then wait a week and play each other again. Oregon-Washington might happen. Jed Fish gets things going to Washington, the Ducks and the Huskies, but they play each other in the annual rivalry, and then we'll play again in the Big Ten title game, the game that actually matters. So I know that Lincoln Riley has been chastised, and quite frankly, I agree with most of the people chastising him because I think rivalries are still one of those Jenga blocks that's keeping college football kind of from collapsing in on itself. But we lost Texas and Texas A&M for a long, long time. Almost every rivalry that was changed due to conference realignment has kind of had a filler, right? Texas A&M left the Big 12, goes to the SEC. Well, Texas is going to play Oklahoma every year, and they're going to play in the Cotton Bowl, and it's going to be the new rivalry. Because I might be wrong. Red River Shootout, another Red River rivalry, kind of a fairly new thing. I don't know if it has like decades upon decades upon decades, because Oklahoma was in the Big 8 for all those years, and they had bedlam with Oklahoma State, and like Nebraska was kind of their rival. And Texas played Texas A&M Thanksgiving weekend every single year. That was Texas's rival in the old Southwest Conference. Conference realignment happened. Things changed. All of a sudden, boom. Hey, Texas and Oklahoma. That's a really good game. You want to play at the Cotton Bowl? Yeah, we do. I might be wrong on that one, though. But almost every rivalry that's kind of been broken up has kind of had a filler. But how long before we see coaches and administratives and conferences go like, hey, I mean, if you're the Big Ten and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish has turned their back on you, like they've been trying, the Big Ten has been trying to woo Notre Dame since the mid-'90s, and probably even before that. In the mid-'90s, the Big Ten got Penn State to come in, and they were like, we're going to get Penn State, and then we're going to get Notre Dame. And Notre Dame was like, we're just going to stay by ourselves. We're kind of a loner. We like to keep all the money to ourselves. And if you're the Big Ten, how long before you go to USC and be like, hey, USC, sure we still want to play Notre Dame every year and potentially face a loss and potentially keep you out of the playoff and potentially then add Notre Dame to the playoff? And that's 17, 18, $20 million we don't get and Notre Dame gets. Well, maybe we don't play that game. And if you're Oregon, if you're Oregon State, and if Oregon State ends up in the Big 12, and Oregon's in the Big Ten, playing the third week of September every single year. Is that going to benefit either team other than appeasing stuck-in-the-mud old school fans like me? It's going to be fascinating over the next 3, 4, 5 years to see what ultimately happens to rivalries. Also, more things changing in the world of college football. Countdown to kickoff continues, and we have got maybe one of the funnest stadium naming right stories ever. That's next here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, congratulations yesterday to our Ticket Tuesday winner. Because each and every Tuesday, we are keeping the winning streak alive here on Rip City Radio. That's right. It is Ticket Tuesday, exclusive tickets to the Hillsboro Hops all season long. Listen to Rip City Drive each and every Tuesday afternoon for your chance to win, or you can just get your Hops tickets now at hillsborohops.com. All right, our countdown to kickoff continues. 24 is the number today, 24 days away from college football 2024. And this is a fascinating story. And again, kind of goes to show where we are in the college football landscape. And is this a trend to come, or is this just kind of a one-off fun story? Let's go on campus. All right, stadium naming rights, nothing new. Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, right? Going all the, like, Wrigley Field. Yeah, Wrigley's chewing gum. While it was the man, Wrigley, who owned the team, still, it's a nice little marketing ploy, right? Stadium naming rights has been part of our lives, part of our sports lives forever. But for the most part, like, I mean, I know there's Reser Stadium, which obviously Reser has food products, but the Reser
Shout out Beaverton.
What's the best Reser product? Is it potato salad?
I like Hawaiian style mac salad, so I'll
With the
be
pineapples in it?
I'll be out on regular, just a deli mac salad. I'm out on it.
You're out on deli mac salad. Oh, I gotcha.
Is this not quite
Not
that
with
Hawaiian
pineapples in it.
style?
Yeah, you want it more mayo-y.
Yes.
Less, is it mustard in there? I don't know.
I have no idea what's in Local Boys' mac salad. Man.
Nobody does.
Maybe sugar. I've always heard forever there's sugar in McDonald's French fries too. Also, other maybe addictive substances.
So,
but
yeah, Reser Stadium. But that's also like Al Reser is a guy.
Was yes.
Well,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. to Al Reser. He's
Been a minute now.
But the Reser family, like, is the one just like Autzen. Autzen was a guy. He was a beef.
Yeah, who went to Oregon State.
He was a beef.
Kind of funny.
Again, we talked about Civil War last segment. Like the cross section. Rich Brooks was on the Giant Killers. It's Rich Brooks Field. How many stuff are they going to name after beefs? And then Don Essig, your stadium announcer down in Eugene. He went to Oregon State. There's so much like back and forth between the two schools. Anyways, neither here nor there. But you have Autzen Stadium, you have Reser Stadium, which is technically a corporate name. Alaska Airlines Field in Seattle, but it's Husky Stadium. And now we have one of the most interesting stadium names, Florida International University. Now, not obviously a Power 5 school, but every once in a while, FIU pops up. What are they, the Eagles?
Panthers.
They're the Panthers.
A lot of Panthers. A lot of cats in Florida. Don't know.
How did
must have been before people came and killed them
Wildcats
all.
and Bulldogs, right? Those two things, not just colleges, but high schools, middle schools across the country. Like, there was a time we just could not get enough Wildcats and Bulldogs. Obviously, Eagles make sense.
Well, and Yellowstone had a great point, Justin. They're like, what is a wildcat? A cat that went outside? Like, at least a bobcat or a cougar is like a legit, like, there is no wildcat. Like, you can't go, oh, yeah, look, there's a wildcat. Like,
but
you know what I mean?
It doesn't stop, so many Wildcats, so many Bulldogs.
Bears. A lot of the Bears.
Yeah. But I would say if I were to give, like, the top, it'd be Eagles, Bulldogs, Wildcats. You go to any conference, every high school conference, you probably find something there. But the Panthers of FIU.
Okay, I have the list in front of me, Justin.
Let's save it for next segment. I want to save that for next segment because I can filibuster and not talk about Pitbull. Mr. Worldwide bought the naming rights to the stadium at FIU. We've seen some weird naming rights. I think it was Papa John's Stadium at Louisville, right? Isn't it Papa John's Stadium?
I think it used to be before Papa John got himself in trouble.
But the pizza, the
Shaq bought it.
The guy is now gone, and Shaq's there, so Papa John's isn't racist anymore.
Issues.
But I still think it's Papa John's Field. And now Florida International shall run out of the tunnel and take the field at Pitbull Stadium.
L&N Federal Credit Union Stadium now, Justin. Papa John's is out.
Okay. Peace out, Papa John's.
Papa John's out the pool.
But Louisville plays at a Federal Credit Union. I think Washington State, while it's Martin Stadium, I think it's Gisa Field, and that's a credit union.
Yeah. Lots of money with banks.
But now we have got what is Pitbull? What is Pitbull?
Awesome.
Is he awesome? What would you say is he's not a good singer? He's not a good rapper.
Pitbull just makes bangers, man. You go anywhere,
is he a producer? Would you say producer is his number one thing? Or is it just being the guy who's he's just the party?
I'd still call him a singer and a rapper. Obviously his star was a little brighter 10 years ago. There was a time when if you were at a party and you didn't play Pitbull, something was wrong with you. And it's still at the point where oh yeah, I still have Pitbull come across my shuffle. He still drops bangers, man. That's all I'll say.
I like that Timber song.
Yeah. I mean, he's got so many, man. There are anything you hear in the club or anytime a Pitbull song comes on the club, Justin, it's going to be a good song.
But he's one of those guys that's figured out a way to just link up with really talented people and get his name attached to it. DJ Khaled, another guy.
Yeah.
Not much talent there with DJ Khaled, but he's gonna be next to Wiz Khalifa, who does have a ton of talent.
Not the most recent reference there, Justin.
The only thing who's DJ Khaled collabed with?
Everyone. Travis Scott, Drake, you make your true.
Also Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah, at some point. Wiz has even been out of the game for a hot minute now. But Pitt, he's still relevant, man, and that's why I think it's cool that he's that's one of the coolest things I've seen. When I saw that headline yesterday, I think you sent it to me. I was like, "Woo, that's cool."
All right. Let's see. Everybody get up, Pretty Ricky. That's I'm trying to think of most. The anthem with Little John, is that the yeah?
That's a good one.
Cali Ocho, I Know You Want Me, that song.
Oh, we did On the Floor with J-Lo. That's a great song.
T-Pain, Hey Baby. Give Me Everything, Neo.
Oh,
again.
That's a great song.
It is because Neo's good. I don't know if is it because Neo or is it because Pitbull?
Yeah, kind of in a different way.
Let's see.
Ooh, Feel This Moment, Christina Aguilera. I remember that was a big one, too. Yeah. Again,
Timber with Kesha, because Kesha's talented.
That's a great song, too.
I think, if you just look at all his singles, they're all, with other people. So he's done a really good job. That's what you do.
Surround yourself with good people.
Well, and now he's more than that. If the Florida International Panthers win a couple of games, it shall be on Pitbull Stadium ground. And now we'll see what other pop stars are going to get into the college football or
Swiftie.
Just naming rights games. Yeah, how long for the Taylor? She doesn't need one,
Swiftie
but she could.
At Arrowhead Stadium?
That'd be crazy. All right, we have got hour number 2 coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
7 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Brenden Slaughter with you. Team USA men's basketball cruised past Brazil 122-87 behind a balanced scoring outburst that saw 6 hit double figures. Serbia is up next on Thursday for Team USA. The New England Patriots are dropping their pursuit of 49ers wide receiver Brenden Ayuk. The Steelers and Browns are still in the mix, as is a return to San Francisco. And over in the MLB, the White Sox snapped a 21-game losing streak, besting the Oakland A's 5-1 and avoiding a new AL record in the process. Coming up, we'll have Tyson Alger on the big show.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. As Brenden just told you, Tyson Alger is going to be joining us in hour number 3 as we continue to inch closer and closer to college football, both Oregon and Oregon State, right in the middle of fall camp. Oregon just put out their 33-minute fall camp preview video, as only Oregon can do. I've been watching it during the breaks. I'm getting very excited. I'm getting pumped up. But we're even more pumped up to talk to Tyson coming up in about an hour and 20 minutes. We do have a make or miss. We do have stuff we saw on the internet. You mentioned it, Brenden, during the update. Did the Patriots break up with Brenden Ayuk before he could say, I don't want to go there? Because I saw the reports yesterday. It sounded like Ayuk was not all that interested in going to the New England Patriots, which I completely understand. Like, if you're Brenden Ayuk, money is one thing, and you want to get paid, and I don't know if he's in a position to get paid at the level he thinks he should be compensated for the 49ers because, well, everybody else is getting paid on that team. But you really want to go catch passes from Jacoby Brissett for a season?
Or Drake May.
Or Drake May.
And his glory. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, is that where you want to go with the first-year head coach, or do you want to play on a team that could possibly get back to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think when all is said and done, the 49ers said, fine, you don't want what we're going to pay you? Go see if another team will. And I think we've maybe seen some teams who've been like, yeah, what the Niners gave you wasn't that bad of an offer, Ayuk. So I think at this point, he's going to be back in San Francisco, but we'll see.
It is interesting, though, because, again, and reports are reports. Who knows what's true? Who knows what's being floated out there from agents and from team personnel and all that. But it sounded like yesterday, like Ayuk was not all that interested in the Patriots, which I understand. He wants to go to the Commanders, right? Because he wants to play for Jaden Daniels. I saw that.
But they said they don't want to trade for him.
But they don't want to trade for him. I know Pittsburgh was in the mix a bit, but I don't know if Pittsburgh's going to have an awful lot of long-term money they could allocate to a guy like Brenden Ayuk. They need a receiver. As much as my 2019 grudge still holds against Brenden Ayuk, I'd like Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields to be throwing touchdowns to that guy, and the Steelers need that guy. Browns kind of also in the same boat, right? They got to find somebody. They put all that money towards Deshaun Watson. Off the field stuff aside, they committed all that money to Deshaun Watson. You got to get him somebody to throw to. Who's the Browns' best receiver?
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper, he's still out there, isn't he? How long's Amari Cooper been there? Well, he's been
since they traded him from Dallas. That was probably, 4 or 5 years ago?
Feels like Amari Cooper's been in the league for like 47 years.
He has been. 2013, 2012 drafts. That's been over a decade now.
So anytime you get over like 8 years, I feel like you're just in the NFL for like 20. It feels like you've been there forever. So we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, I feel like the Patriots did a whole you don't want to go to homecoming with us? We didn't want to go with you either. We were not really all that interested in you. So thanks. But I agree with you. I think he ends up back in San Francisco. I think this whole thing comes full circle. You're not going to get DJ Moore money because, well, nobody knows you can be number one receiving option. But the flirting and the team, like, with the Steelers and the Browns still potentially in the mix, it is kind of fascinating. We talked about this last segment. I don't know how we got off on it. Oh, probably because we were talking about naming rights and then Pitbull and then the fact that Bulldogs got such a high volume of team names. And so I said I thought that if you go from professional sports to college sports to high school teams, high school mascots, I would imagine the top three in maybe no particular order would be Eagles, Wildcats, Bulldogs. Brenden, you have done the research. You have the list of most common team mascots.
Yes, for high school, these are all in a database, and we have got more than we could ever read. So let's go
Eagles number one?
You got it.
Boom.
With 1,814 teams across the United States. The
Eagles is everywhere. It makes sense. You know what I mean? It's easy. Also, I think because you have to factor in sometimes the private schools and the religious schools, and Eagles works there. It works from every state. It's because Eagle is the country. All right. I'm going to say Bulldogs 2.
Number 3, though.
Bulldogs 3.
Yep. So close. You want to take a stab at number 2?
So I'm guessing it's not Wildcats.
Nope, not Wildcats.
It's not Wildcats.
Either. Wildcats do make an appearance, so you've got another one on the top 10.
Okay, so so Eagles are 1, Bulldogs are 2.
Bulldogs 3.
Or excuse me, Bulldogs 3. Is it an animal?
Yes.
It's is it lions?
Close.
Tigers?
There it is.
The Tigers.
Tigers come in number 2, pretty much by themselves, pretty close to the Eagles, but significantly ahead of the Bulldog.
So we got Eagles, Tigers, Bulldogs, then Lions?
Panthers.
Panthers above Lions?
Yeah.
That's surprising a little bit.
Panthers.
Okay, so
number 5, Wildcats.
Wildcats at 5. So for me, off the top of my head, I said Eagles, Bulldogs, Wildcats. I got
you nailed almost
3 of the top 5. That's pretty good. And I didn't factor in Panthers being in the top 5 is interesting because the fact that there are Panthers and there are Jaguars and there are Bobcats Panthers? I don't think so. Mountain Lions, Nittany Lions.
They're all from the feline family.
Cougars, not that kind of cougar, but because call me nuts, but Mountain Lions, Panthers, and Cougars, all the same thing, right? Just different names depending on where it's at.
Yeah, give or take.
They're all kind of the same thing.
Interestingly enough, you just named 7 and 8, or 8 and 9 are Lions and Cougars, excuse me.
Lions, Cougars.
A couple others that surprised me. Warriors at 6 is
higher.
Those
are being phased out.
Yeah, higher.
Probably would have been higher 20 years ago.
Well, you said phased out.
Those are being phased out.
Number 7, still over 1,000 schools per this. Indians.
Yep.
So, hey, man.
That's not. And we do this conversation in 5 years.
Scappoose still right up the road, Justin. I pass
Scappoose and Roseburg, but I believe
I pass them all the time.
I believe Scappoose and Roseburg both have agreements with the local tribe.
That would be important. Yes.
I don't know about Scappoose because I hate them. I'm sorry, Scappoose.
But yeah,
probably nice people. I hate you. I will hate you forever. Ruined my dreams. But
still hanging on to that 20 some odd years later, right?
Never letting that one go. I do not do I would say, Brenden, I'm fairly self-aware of when I do Glory Days stuff, and I do it mostly tongue-in-cheek. I mean, no big deal. They don't I'm a honorable mention, Far West League. I was a 2-time Far West League champion. I mean, it's no big deal. But I fairly... And most of my playing days, while I had a good time in high school and junior college, I am fairly realistic of my athletic achievements, and I was much better at talking about them than playing them. That being said, that one I'm never giving up. I hate you, Scappoose. I hate you forever.
So
it was 1997. Brenden was, I don't even know if you were walking yet. Don't know.
I was quick.
But
Yeah. I was like, we're talking fall of 97. Yeah, I was walking.
Okay. I don't know. How old are you when you walk? Most people.
That's right. I forgot you don't have like no real little
understanding. When do kids talk?
Oh gosh, talk. I'm not sure. You usually start to stand up and can take steps. If you haven't done that by a year,
okay.
Usually, now it's been a minute since I've had some little siblings, so it's been.
It's like you know how they talk about with like famous people, like how much is a gallon of milk, and they're like, what, $17? I don't know.
You're like
people don't know. Like, hey Justin, when do babies walk? When they're 4? I don't know. Like, I have no earthly idea.
That's funny.
I could not tell you. But yeah.
Last but not least, I want to throw this one out there too.
I hate them so much.
And I thought it was just like again, I drive up to drive through Scappoose at least a couple times.
Well,
I
don't, thankfully, because you know what? I avoid them.
Oh well, I'm going to an awesome place every time I go up there, so it's no big deal for me. But I always see home of the Indians and very like you said, just like you said, if there's permission and all no.
Well, I know I know Roseburg because again I'm from there. There is an agreement in place with the local tribe, and it's a whole thing.
Is important. Absolutely.
I don't know if all parts of the country feel that way.
Agreed.
I think there might be some other places in this great but complex country that we live in where maybe there's not. All right, so
would you real quick before we do? I wanted to curious if you'd guess the last one in the top 10. It is it shocked me for how high it is.
Is it an animal?
No.
So it's not bears.
Yeah, it is actually a.
Is it like
a person character? If that makes sense.
It's like Trojans.
Close.
Spartans.
You're on the right track. Medieval.
Vikings.
Closer.
Not Vikings.
No, closer. Vikings are in the top 20.
Medieval. Knights?
The Knights.
Yeah.
Knights come in at number 10. That surprised me a little bit. I didn't think there's I don't even know if there's any Knights in Oregon, man.
Well, South Umpqua is the Lancers, and they stink at football.
It's just like you just have all these ready to go on your teams that you played growing up. You just
like a Lancer is kind of a knight, but like I think what a Lancer is medieval times is a knight that stinks at football. I think that's what technically a Lancer is.
Catching strays this morning.
Sorry. Yeah, pretty sure that's what South Umpqua is. Just a knight that's just not good at football. And then Vikings came
in at 14.
14. Where's Bears? Where's
23rd?
That's the low. I would be.
I mentioned Bears,
I guess
so I was a bit surprised.
You could be the Bears, you could be the Grizzlies, you could be the Cubs. Newport's the Cubs. But they want to rethink that one. That's not very. Anyways, shout out to Newport. I got no strays against Newport. Love Newport. Hate South Umpqua. Really hate Scappoose. And you know what?
How about Walport?
And Brenden can stick it too.
You in or out on Walport?
Walport is the Walport Irish? I believe they're the Irish.
Great baseball stadium.
We got nothing against Walport. They can kick it. All right, coming up next, Justin will not continue the high schools that he hated in 1996, and we'll get into Make or Miss on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up in an hour from now, Tyson Alger is going to join the big show. Obviously, we are getting closer and closer. A little over 3 weeks until Oregon and Idaho kick it off on August the 31st at Autzen Stadium. So we'll talk to Tyson Alger coming up. Also, I wonder what his high school mascot is. So mine was the Trojans, obviously, and we were kind of modeled after USC.
That's as far as they go. That's a pretty cool one. Not gonna lie.
Trojans was cool. I am a proud Douglas Trojan alum. Bowman is cool.
That's how I've never seen
Bowman
one before.
is cool. It's got to be the only one.
Yeah, it's
right.
I mean, Sherwood. As far as the story goes, named after the Sherwood Forest,
Boom.
Nottingham, Robin Hood, all that's why we just had our Robin Hood Festival.
You guys have a Robin Hood Festival?
Every year?
Every year you have a Robin. How have I not known about this? I have known you for like 3 years now. You are a proud Sherwoodian.
Yeah, we'll go with Woodian. Sherwoodian.
Sherwoodite.
Yeah, one of the two.
And I have not known that every summer,
Yes,
there's a Robin Hood Festival. Do you dress up in tights and do archery?
No,
Do you rob all the rich people and then just like you steal all their food and then just give it to all the poor people in town? Even though it's Sherwood, you don't have poor people.
We don't.
I don't think you allow poor people in.
Maybe Brendan's the poorest person in town, but that's.
Wouldn't it be hilarious? Like if it's a Robin Hood festival,
It is. It's a big.
and you show up and be like, "All right, what's your tax bracket? Thank you. That's mine now." And you're like, "Wait a minute." Yeah, you're rich. We rob from the rich and we give it to the poor. It's Sherwood. It's Robin Hood. You ever seen the movie or the cartoon?
But yeah, it's every.
So what's like the main
Yes, like,
attraction? So Winston, we had a melon festival.
Okay.
Burke's Big Blue Fruit Stand used to be a very big deal. I don't think it's around anymore. But when I was a kid, Burke's Big Blue Fruits, it was Burke's. And they would, at the end of the summer, that's when the watermelons are harvested. And we would have the Winston Watermelon Festival.
Okay.
There was a Watermelon Festival Queen. That was phased out.
That's cool.
There was a big dance for the kid. It was our summer thing. And it's where you went and bought, stuff off of Kearney's, like fake tattoos and switchblade combs and things like that. So that's what we had. We had the Melon Festival, and obviously the Douglas County Fair was a big deal. But you had and Junction City had the Scandinavian Festival,
I've been
which
to
is
one.
legit.
Shout
Out to Junction City, but you had the Robin Hood Festival.
No, it's third weekend of July every year. They do some things that are like.
You have a parade?
Yeah,
You got a Robin Hood Festival parade?
Yeah, like that's kind of the morning stuff. I showed up for Hit Machine, the concert at night, and to drink my face off. So that's what you do at the Robin Hood Festival when you're an adult.
Go to the beer garden.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man, it's packed. Listen to Hit Machine. Shout out the local legends that are. Yeah, it was.
I think I've been somewhere where Hit Machine has been. Somewhere in the past. They have every festival around.
They are everywhere.
There's been a festival, a beer garden, something.
It's a beer. You probably would have liked it, Justin.
I would have loved it. There's a beer garden and Hit Machine playing.
Exactly.
And it's a Robin Hood Festival. What's the food like?
Basically what you'd expect for any fair. Like, they got their little circle of,
But there's no, special, we do, because Robin Hood being British, we do, we do bangers and mash or something, no?
Just like your typical, vendors, corn dogs, and,
corn dogs
all that kind, your donuts and your elephant ears and your this and your, all that.
See, that's where, I will tip of the cap to the Scandi Fest down in Junction City. It is meat pies. Meat pies is what they do. And the line for meat pies around the block. It's around the block. And then you get there and you're like, they're good, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, we stood in line for these? Yeah, it's just what you do. It's just it's what
Fair.
you do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure the Bowmen are got to be the only ones maybe in existence. Fairly certain Tillamook cheesemakers got to be the only ones. Not in Oregon, but across the river. Camas Papermakers.
That's got to be another one.
Probably the only one. Astoria Fishermen. You think there's a...
Could be. I think
there's another fisherman?
Yeah,
probably.
maybe Maine somewhere, or I'm trying to think of the city. Maine is on the coast. Don't think either one of the Hampshire or Vermont. I don't think they touch the coast. Connecticut, maybe, right? Somewhere like Astoria, kind of small, little sleepy coastal town. I could see it.
I do love, and while my team's mascot was not anything connected to my city, even though, so when I was in elementary school, we were the McGovern Elementary Cheetahs, because obviously the wildlife safari and Cayenne the cheetah, RIP. But like, I love it when teams like high schools have like something about like the Tillamook Cheesemakers. That's awesome.
That is.
It's an awesome name. It's even better when you're good. Like when you're good and you have kind of a funny nickname, it's just like, yep, here come Cheesemakers. We're gonna come crush you.
I am curious though.
There's got to be only one Bowman though.
Yeah, I mean, and it is very unique. I can't say I've ever heard that before. Maybe if you go to like Europe, near like Nottingham and Sherwood Forest, you might have some Bowman or Robin Hoods or something like that. But this, Justin, it's not quite as popular of a quote fable as it is in Europe. Like,
other ones in Oregon, I'm thinking the Oakland Okers got to be the only ochre in existence. I can't imagine there's another ochre.
Seen that logo, the little acorn looking thing, man?
Oh yeah,
that's kind of funny. Yeah,
the Oakland Okers.
Yeah, I've seen that logo.
Then for like not creative, Elkton. And guess what Elkton is?
The Elkton Elks.
Yeah,
yep,
the
I know
Elkton
that
Elks.
one.
Or the Elkton Elks. All right, we gotta get to make or miss. Here we go.
I still think it's just last point on this, Justin. I still think it's fascinating just to see how and where, because like you said, just an observation, no criticism intended. But like you said, depending on where you live, names can be, those names sometimes are changed at a quicker rate. Maybe sometimes they're held on for a while. One of the most fascinating things that I can remember was when I was down living in Corvallis and I was at Oregon State, Justin, the South Albany Rebels became the South Albany Red Hawks.
They're the Red Hawks.
So, and that was I was working for the Corvallis Gazette-Times at the time, and it was kind of a big deal. Like, everyone's like, oh, this was like 2016 or something like that, but yeah.
That tracks. Yeah, probably right around there.
But nevertheless, I found that and I was like, oh, it can just like happen overnight, like so quickly. And then all of a sudden it's like the next year I'm writing my high school briefs and the Red Hawks. Typing out Red Hawks.
Definitely man. Red Hawks is what I meant to. Well, it's like nobody knows. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but you have to be of a certain age. Like, I've always known Stanford as the Cardinal. They were not for a long time. Not only were they not the Stanford Cardinal, they also had mascot that was not all that great.
A little like the Cleveland Indians, to be honest.
Yeah, wasn't really good. Makes sense why they changed it.
Yes.
But I've only known Stanford as the Cardinal.
I think it was 70 is when that. So you obviously weren't here. I obviously was not here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have too, Justin, seen the old, like there's old pictures where it's like, oh, the old Pack 8. And it's like the live action versions of the mascot.
So there's a cougar, there's a husky, there's a duck and a beef.
Yep.
There's the cartoon Trojan, cartoon Bruin, cartoon bear.
Cartoon Native American.
That one's not good.
Yeah. So
let's put a tree there.
Yeah. Knowing what we know about Stanford now.
Kind of with the opposite on that one. It's like, what shall offend no one ever?
A tree.
Big old tree.
Yep.
Got it.
I'm like a tree, but then a cardinal.
The cardinal's going to be
a color, right?
A color, but it might get confused with the bird because most people, when you think of cardinals, it's the St. Louis or Arizona version. But instead, you're like, no. We're not the Cardinals. We're the Cardinal. We're just the color.
Oh yeah, I remember as a kid, Justin, trying to ask Dad to explain Stanford to me for that very reason, because I'm like,
so why they're not the Cardinals?
Yeah, like their mascot is a tree, but a cardinal is not a tree; it's a color.
All right, I don't want to hijack Make or Miss. I don't want to hijack it, but I do it often. Alabama is the Crimson Tide, which I believe is a Civil War reference. I believe so. Their mascot's an elephant.
That makes sense.
I don't know how it makes sense. Like, it's like how. How did they get an elephant after being known as they're the Crimson Tide? Where'd that come from?
Okay, so this is interesting. So per this, Justin, Crimson Tide was when someone like spilled blood.
That was the blood from the ocean at like a battle in Civil War.
Yeah, so
that's what I always thought.
Supposedly back then, a quick said Alabama apparently won a very bloody, muddy football game. They go, the Crimson Tide of Alabama rose up.
So maybe that one's confusing. What's more confusing?
But an elephant.
What's more confusing? That the Crimson Tide are there as an elephant, or their rivals, which is the Auburn Tigers, yet they yell War Eagle, and they have an eagle that flies around. And I remember when Oregon played Auburn twice, one in 2019, the other in the 2010 season, but the 2011 national title game. And I asked multiple people from Auburn, what is War Eagle? And nobody knows.
It's just like that thing that we have told ourselves for 100 and some years, and now the story is the...
And I heard 4 different versions of it.
But yeah, like
but they got like War Eagle.
Are you guys?
But
Eagles?
you're the Tigers.
Yeah, that one's worse.
Nobody thought to change the. And also, by the way, you're in the same conference as LSU, and you're both in the Tigers. Also, Clemson's also the Tigers,
True.
and Clemson and LSU are both the Tigers, and both called their stadium Death Valley.
Great point. There's some
crazy time before the internet.
I mean, there's some reason for that. I'm pretty sure there's like Death Valley has some kind of like historical context, so it's not surprising they've named it in a couple different spots. But yeah, Justin, for sure, War Eagle is worse. Here's why. If Alabama trotted out an elephant, a live elephant, and said, that's our mascot.
Do you think they ever did? You ever did back? Because remember, like it
used to be easier
hear
to get
the story of the Detroit Lions used to have an actual lion on the sideline. That went away. There's Mike the Tiger in LSU, but he's in a cage. And also, I think.
Yep, they did.
They did. They had a real
so
elephant.
In the 1940s, does not say exactly where, but again, the Ringling Brothers Circus was around back then, and probably a little easier to get an elephant back then.
So nuts.
Yep, they kept a live mascot for about a year, or excuse me, about 10 years.
10 years.
By the 50s, keeping a live elephant year-round proved too expensive for the university.
So that was definitely not bad for the elephant. It was we can't feed this thing.
Right, maybe
all right, it's eating way too much of the elephant budget's getting way too high. We need to maybe put some money into our offensive line and feed them instead of feed this big giant elephant.
So
Auburn doing the whole War Eagle, and then they have an eagle that flies around, yet they're the Tigers.
I mean, how about that?
Because you could have changed it. Like they've been saying War Eagle for 100 years. You could have just changed it.
It's a great point. And to that point, too, Justin, just to show how long ago that was, Bear Bryant wouldn't even get to Alabama for another 8. He only came in at 50. So, like, we're talking over 100 years ago almost 80. But like,
80 years ago, yeah.
That they had a live. But could you imagine being in Tuscaloosa and seeing, like, a live elephant run onto the field? Like, we think Ralphie.
Which is funny, though, because that seems ridiculous now. Yet.
Ralphie.
There's Buffalo that runs out on Colorado every game. And it's awesome. If you've ever seen it, it's awesome.
Is it? I'm being a bit mean-spirited here, Justin, but just as far as live math, is it as cool as when they run out with the Husky up in Seattle? The Husky on the field?
Ralphie's cooler. I'm a dog guy.
Yeah.
I have to say, Dubs is pretty cool. So the
cute little
the big mascot, that's Harry the Husky.
Yes.
Actual live dog is Dubs.
Yes. Kind of a cute little guy.
Dubs is pretty cool.
Did I tell you that Dubs is in the video game too?
Yeah.
Running onto the field with the Husky. It's kind of a cool thing. I noticed that the other day. I was like, how about that?
How do you feel as a Beaver fan about the duck on the Harley thing?
It's cool.
Cool?
It's cool. It is. But then again, Justin.
It's not such a weird thing just out of nowhere. It's just like this guy, his name was Doug Koke.
Yeah.
Very big deal down in Eugene. And he's just like, yeah, I got this Harley. How about it's all decked out in Oregon stuff. And they're like, sure. Doug,
It's just
which would have you run out on the field, and then all of a sudden the duck hopped on the back, and then it became a thing.
Yeah, it just
So weird.
It goes hand in hand with how great Oregon's marketing is. Again, Justin, not to.
Do you know Oregon got a procedure penalty on a kickoff one time because Doug Koke ran the motorcycle too close to the opposing team's sideline? I think it was.
Did not.
He has to stay in a lane. It's not him anymore. Doug is retired, but the motorcycle at Oregon has to stay in a lane. If it doesn't, they got a procedure penalty one time.
Okay, so yeah.
Is that better or worse than did Mike Parker ever get a technical foul calling a basketball game?
No.
I know Mike Rice did.
Yes. Not that I'm aware of. Maybe question next time we check in with Mike, but not that I'm aware of. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's a good question.
Yeah. Trying to think of other confusing mascots.
Because I'm like, where are you at on it?
It's just what it's what it is.
Yeah, because I look and Justin, not to
Oregon's got to up their game. I'll be honest, the last couple of years, their intros have not been that great. There was a time when the Oregon intro was awesome.
Right. I felt the same way.
And they changed it all the time because that's what Oregon does. They change it up. And they tried some stuff these last couple of years. Hasn't been great since COVID. I don't want to blame it on COVID, but they do all these great video. And it's just like, put some awesome music, put some highlights, show, now Dan Lanning saying we're playing for on the grass or we're playing for wins. You just put that up there. Everybody's going to go ballistic.
Right.
It hasn't been that great.
Hasn't
been that great.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Justin, because I feel that Oregon State hasn't made a video that's got me real jazzed in about 10 years. It used to be, one of my favorite videos was, the lead up, and then, as soon as they ran on the field, it was Phil Collins in the
Air Tonight?
Yeah, just dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun.
That's pretty good.
I'm like, that was cool. But back to your point, not to betray, House Oregon State, Justin, but I'll admit it, and I have for a long time. The only thing that I truly hate about what your team does is that dang horn.
The horn.
It's the horn. I like shout.
Can I tell you honestly? Because I've been to so many games, I don't hear it anymore. I don't hear it.
Oregon
for me,
scores, it's bad to worse.
They do it's pretty much a hockey horn, right? It's like what.
It's just again. I
don't even hear it anymore.
Every time I've heard it, it's just because you're sitting there high-fiving and celebrating.
Well, I've been to so many games. Yeah, it's just kind of it's become almost like white noise to me. And also, you hate it when Oregon scores. It's just I hate that stupid chainsaw at Reser Stadium. If that thing ever went away, and I'm sure that's in the video game.
It is.
Of course it is.
They couldn't get the new stadium, but got
the crank it like a chainsaw.
Thankfully, not that terrible version, Justin. We don't need to pretend that exists.
I will say
it was scrubbed from the internet.
And I've told you this: the spelling out the OSU, that's kind of cool. It's cool. I like
across
it.
the three sides of the stadium. Yeah.
It's or when the Oregon State fight thing. That's
first down. Yeah,
I like it. It's cool. I hate that stupid chainsaw.
See, I have one thing that I despise, and you have one thing you despise. It only fits, man.
All right. Hey, Brenden, great make or miss. Great make or miss. Do want to let you know, though, hey, our good friends at Lazy Boy, they want help. They want you to help stuff the bus. That's right. It's the Stuff the Bus school supply drive now through August the 19th. Donate a backpack or 10 miscellaneous school supply items to any of the 6 local Lazy Boy locations, including Salem and Eugene, and you can receive up to 25% off your Lazy Boy purchase. Some exclusions do apply. And then the Salvation Army is going to distribute your donations to local families in need. As always, we thank you for your generosity, and you can get all the details on the community page at ripcityradio.com. Stuff we saw on the internet coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number 2. Stuff we saw on the internet. Brenden found this from a couple of days ago. Interestingly enough, I was somewhat near my house, somewhat near my neighborhood, not exactly near it, but somewhere close in southeast Portland. Apparently, a pet tortoise went missing from its owner's home. Turned up 2 days later on the other side of a busy interstate. That would be Interstate 205, just north of southeast Flavel Street, which that runs kind of close to my house. Recognizing that this might be a runaway pet, officers caught up with the reptile. The Bureau said tortoise was apprehended after extremely slow speed chase. This rider had a fun time with this one. And Multnomah County Animal Control was able to identify him as Bowser, reported missing 2 days earlier. Are tortoises faster than I think? How on earth? Because I've been on 205. I've been on 205 right where this whole thing went down. Not quite to Clackamas Town Center, but in the ballpark. And I'm pretty fleet of foot, Brenden. I don't know if I could get from one end of 205 to the other.
Probably just went under it.
Probably did. Probably hit an overpass.
Yeah,
but
like whether that, I mean, I'm just guessing.
I'm just imagining like Frogger, the video game, a tortoise just
we would have seen tortoise soup all over the freeway.
Well, somebody would have hopefully maybe.
You think freeways
hit the brakes and say, "Hey, I think that's a tortoise."
That's honestly, that's a great question. Say 205, you got your speed limit of 65, I think in some spots, 55 in others.
Yeah, nobody drives that slow.
And yeah, I don't know if you see a giant tortoise in the road and you slam on your brakes, that might cause some ripple effect. Like, I don't know, Justin. I guess it depends if I could stop safely. Otherwise, that tortoise might be hazardly in my way.
It might be. So, tortoise got away. Is this one of those things? Because, like, obviously, I have a dog. I have a yard with a fence. That fence is secure. And when I don't take my dog out off of a leash, because my dog doesn't listen to me, he's stubborn. Is this one of those things where you figure, like, well, this tortoise ain't going anywhere. I don't need to worry about putting it in a terrarium? Is that where it would go? It'd have to be a pretty big terrarium because these tortoises get pretty big, right?
It was pretty good size. I mean, you look at the police that were picking it up in the pictures, like they're using both hands, like to pick up said tortoise. I mean, that being said, it looks like it probably just like ducked under an underpass.
That is big. That is a big tortoise. You're right.
That's what I said. I mean, it is big. That's why I'm like, Justin, you hit that with your car, you might lose a tire.
Well, thankfully, nobody hit the tortoise.
Yeah, I know.
With the car, Brenden. Thankfully, tortoise is safe and sound. I'm just wondering though, how does a tortoise escape? Like,
maybe someone left it in their backyard, kind of a thing, for a little while. Go out and get some exercise, kind of a thing. Take it out of the terrarium, and then maybe from there, gate was open, and rest is history.
But if this thing's going so slow, like, did somebody not pay attention to their tortoise for like a good 2 or 3 days?
It's entirely possible.
I'm just saying, how did it get on the other side of 205? If
that took time.
If all of a sudden just.
But you remember, Justin. While the hare thought he won and was too fast and taking a nap, like we were all probably sleeping last night, the tortoise just gonna keep on going, man.
Is this a fable for this tortoise owner to slow and steady did win the race because you were not paying attention and you should have known as a child? Other thing, Animal Kingdom. This May segment turned into Animal Kingdom. Did you see the whale at the surfing thing?
No.
So. There is surfing in the Olympics. That's a true thing. There is surfing in the Olympics. It's a fairly new sport, but there's surfing. You might be like, well, how do you surf in Paris?
You don't.
You go to Tahiti, which is where they were holding the surfing competition.
Just like thousands of miles away, right?
Okay. Is it kind of a bummer? Like, one, you're in Tahiti, which is awesome. But
I didn't know Tahiti was part of France until now.
Yeah, a lot of
imperialism is a fun
lot
thing.
of imperialism around the Caribbean and There's the Netherlands. There's the British Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Right, totally.
But like, it's the Cook Islands. Okay, so if you're an Olympic surfer and you're like, cool, I'm going to the Olympics. Olympics is in Paris. Where are we going? Tahiti. I would be like, awesome. Tahiti sounds fun, but do you really get like the Olympics though? You get a gold medal if you win, but you're not in Paris. You don't go to the opening ceremonies. You don't get to see any of the other events. I don't know if you would get like what would normally be a pretty awesome, like the next games in 2028 are in LA. Surfing's going to be right there. I would assume they're going to Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Or they probably got someplace wherever surfers go.
Lots of places down there to pick.
But you're going to be able to go to opening ceremonies. You're going to be able to, like, you're in Tahiti. But on the other hand, Tahiti's not crowded. You're just chilling on the beach.
Yeah, I mean.
So they were having the surfing competition at the Olympics. Whale pops up.
I'm looking at a picture now.
Would you freak out if you saw a whale if you were out there surfing?
Surfing?
Shark, yes. Whale, I don't know.
Surfing, maybe. I've been pretty close to a whale when fishing on the ocean. So,
but you're in a boat.
Yeah, like on a boat. But still, whale bigger than the boat.
Yeah.
No, whales don't really scare me. Neither do killer whales. Like
I've seen the orcas.
I like orcas
on a ferry in.
That's cool. That's
up
cool.
in Seattle. A ferry to. I was playing in a golf tournament in.
Never seen
the
them.
San Juan Islands. A Friday.
Great spot.
Friday Harbor. So I was playing in a golf tournament. So we were on the ferry, and all of a sudden everybody went to one side of the ferry. I was like, "What's going on?" Like, oh, cool. Or like. Legit, Free Willy is
that's cool.
Pod is. So I've seen orcas.
But to answer your question,
but like, if I'm out there on a surfboard and a whale starts, I'm like,
yeah.
How bad do I want a gold medal?
Right, that'd be tough. My part is like Tahiti's probably beautiful. It's probably warm. You're on a 5-star cruise ship. That's your Olympic village. I think I'd be okay with Tahiti, Justin. But that's just my opinion.
Even though you don't get to go to Paris, and you don't get to go to opening ceremonies, and you don't.
I'm okay.
You're okay with that.
As long as I get
really
a medal.
like, are there any fans there, like other than like your family?
No fans. It's like COVID.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, hour number 3. Tyson Alger joins the big show. We got an RCM mailbag. A whole bunch of other stuff coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Wednesday. Brenden Slaughter here with you. Team USA men's basketball cruised past Brazil 122-87 behind balanced scoring that saw 6 players hit double figures. They'll match up with Serbia on Thursday. The New England Patriots have dropped their pursuit of 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk. The Steelers and Browns are still in the mix, as is a return to San Francisco. And over in the MLB, the White Sox snapped a 21-game losing streak, besting the Oakland A's 5-1 and avoiding a new AL record in the process. Coming up, we'll have Tyson Alger on the big show.
Hey, welcome back to hour number 3. Well, if you have any children of any athletic ability, maybe teach them how to play basketball. Lauri Markkanen, Woj bomb dropped a minute ago. 5 years, $238 million deal for Lauri Markkanen.
Stay with the Jazz?
With the Utah Jazz. That's right.
Wow. That's
$220 million in new money.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an odd move for Utah.
So he had 1 year, $18 million left on his deal. They used the salary cap increase, or they used the salary cap to increase his 2024-2025 salary another $24 million, and agreed on another 4 years, $196 million that included no options. So Lauri Markkanen, he's having a very good day. Wow. He's having a very good day. Football players just got to hate the basketball players, don't they? We had the conversation. Would you rather be the best running back in the league, in the NFL, or would you rather be the 6th man of the year? Because 6th man of the year is going to make a lot of money. I know Lauri Markkanen's not a 6th man, but he's barely an all-star?
Lauri Markkanen?
Yeah.
The move, the expectation is that the Jazz were going to trade him for a boatload of picks because they don't have their star piece. Like
they must think Markkanen's a piece.
Yeah, because I'm like, you look at like the Blazers. It's like, okay, they have now drafted top quote 10, top 5 talent 3 years. You see where they're going, right?
Yes.
And it's like Utah, after they trade away Gobert and Mitchell, got some pieces. I just don't think Utah's going to compete in the West, with just Markkanen as like the guy, but you never know.
But don't they have they still have all those Gobert draft picks?
They do.
I think they still have 3 of them left.
Something like that.
So they still got those. Danny Ainge ain't done. He's gonna
the pride of 541, baby.
He's a 541 guy.
Highlander?
He's a Highlander. He's
yeah,
a North Eugene Highlander.
There's another really cool name. If you missed a show earlier,
if
you know, you know.
I've been talking about nicknames and mascots a lot today on the big show. Also earlier in the show, shocker, Justin was talking about college football. But I think it's interesting enough to kind of revisit because it was a couple of days ago, kind of flew under the radar a little bit, not with USC fans and not with Notre Dame fans, but Lincoln Riley, the head coach at USC, hinted at the idea that, do we need to be playing Notre Dame every single year? We need to play them in the non-conference every single year? Because if you look at USC's schedule this year, now I think USC could be better. Crazy as it sounds, Brenden, USC could be better this year than they were a year ago, even though they had the number 1 overall draft pick at quarterback. They could be better and still have a worse record because they play LSU in Vegas to start off the season. They play Notre Dame at the end of the season, and I don't think Notre Dame's going to be all that bad. And in the middle, they have Washington, UC. Well, I don't know if UCLA is going to be very good, but Washington, they've got Michigan, they've got Penn State, Nebraska's in there. They're going to be better. They have got a pretty significant Big Ten schedule, and Lincoln Riley's looking at the landscape, going 12-team playoff. I'm the head coach at USC. I don't get into said playoff. I get fired. Are we sure we don't want to play San Diego State instead? Are we sure we don't want to get Fresno State on the schedule? Maybe Nevada, Reno, instead of playing Notre Dame every single year? We're already in the Big Ten. We're going to be playing Michigan and Penn State and Wisconsin. We've got star power on the on the schedule, we really sure we want to play Notre Dame every single year? Because if you are in a super conference, it does seem objectively silly and not beneficial at all to have a out-of-conference rivalry game. And I bring that up because here in the Pacific Northwest, we're trying it this year. It's going to be a little weird. And who knows where the paths fall for both Oregon and Oregon State, or Washington and Washington State for that matter. I believe, knowing nothing and having no sources and simply a guess and a gut, I feel like Oregon State and Washington State in the next 3 years are both going to end up in the Big 12. I really do. They're two.
You think so?
Yeah, I really do. I think they're going to end up in the Big 12. That West Coast time slot is something that I think the Big 12 is going to want. They currently only have teams as far west as Phoenix. Is Salt Lake City more west of Phoenix? I don't know. Either way, I'm assuming Phoenix is probably the most west. Tempe, I should say. But they got the Mountain Time Zone, but they don't have any teams on the West Coast. There are two teams right there. Fits perfect. Plus, as we've mentioned, Oregon State and Washington State have some benefits now that they didn't have a year ago. See, that's where this thing gets a little bit different. A year ago, and I don't see this mean-spirited, Oregon State and Washington State were kind of left hanging because there wasn't an awful lot of benefit that they could bring to the Big 10 or the Big 12 in terms of footprint. But funny thing happened on the way to Weird Media Day in Vegas. They won a big lawsuit, and they were awarded the house and the car and an awful lot of money. And all of a sudden, much like, the one girl who goes away to summer camp and comes back in 8th grade with no glasses and her braces off, like, what's going on with the Cougs and the Beavs? Something about them is different. Yeah, they won a lawsuit. They own the Pac-12 network and all of its assets and an awful lot of money. They can afford to maybe spend a little bit on an entrance fee. They didn't have that last summer. So the only thing that they had last summer was if the Big 12 truly wanted to go from coast to coast. And the Big 12, I do think, does. And they maybe knew that they weren't going anywhere. But also, all those Pac-12 assets. And owning the conference, and they're just going to hang out and be a hybrid thing for a while. And then, ultimately, I think the Big 12 picks them up. Now, moving forward, though, if you're Oregon and if you're Oregon State, and you are now in a Big 12 schedule, and you are in a Big 10 schedule, is it beneficial from a college football playoff perspective to play Civil War at all? Now, there's two theories here. First theory is, why would you schedule a loss? You've already got a conference schedule. If you're Oregon, that is going to feature Ohio State, Michigan this year. Next year, Penn State's on the schedule. Washington every single year. USC's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And if Oregon State ultimately does get into the Big 12, well, you're going to have a schedule featuring TCU and Houston and Ohio State and BYU and trying to kind of put back the pieces that Jonathan Smith stole with him on his way out of town. Playing Oregon in the third week of the season every single year, because call me a homer if you will, this Oregon NIL roster building thing I don't think is a one-off. I don't think they put all of their chips into just the 2024 season. I think Lanning is playing the long play, and I think Phil Knight is financially backing the long play. And I think for the next 5 to 10 years, Oregon is going to be as financially viable as anybody in college football. So their roster is going to be a reflection of that. So if you're Oregon State and you go into the Big 12, does it benefit you to play Oregon every single year, third week. And on the flip side, if you're Oregon, other than passionate fan bases who desperately want to see both and locally, like having Civil War is good for the Willamette Valley. It is. It's good for the Willamette Valley. People go to Eugene. People go to Corvallis. They spend money. You lose that game, that's a pretty big chunk. And I would say maybe more so for Corvallis because, I mean, what's Clodfelter's going to do on third week of September this year? Probably sell a lot of beers.
Still have plenty of kids, though. I mean, that's why I said, like...
Well, I'm just saying, but you know what I mean? Like, that game in Corvallis every other year with likely a top 10 team every single year, that's really good for a local economy. I'm no economist, but that big-time game, that's pretty big. It helps. Also, Oregon State, those ticket prices conveniently double or triple every year. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like, I saw the list of Oregon. Oh, it's weird. Ohio State, those tickets are way more expensive than any other game. So to have that on the schedule every single year, that might be a financial benefit. From a football standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it makes me sad. Because it makes me sad that Lincoln Riley, when talking about USC Notre Dame, is kind of right. You're going to be in the Big Ten. Why are you playing Notre Dame every year? Well, it's tradition. We do it all. I know that, and I love tradition. It's what makes college football great. But can you, as a fan, talk out of both sides of your mouth, which is we want to keep traditions and keep rivalries, but you better make the playoff? Well, we could easily just get rid of one of those, and it makes it not easier, but when you play in the Big Ten or you play in the SEC, you know what you don't have to do? Schedule a tough non-conference. You just don't have to. Now, a lot of people thought the 12-team playoff would encourage more of these non-conference big-time matchups. But it sounds like, if you listen to Lincoln Riley, hey, we've already got a tough enough 9 games in this Big Ten. How about Nevada-Reno? How about that? How about New Mexico State? Want to come? To come see the Coliseum? Come see sunny Southern California?
Yeah, I mean...
We'll beat you by 40?
I mean, they obviously, Justin, aren't taking my opinions, but I'd be willing to bet that over half the Oregon State fan base would not have really cared if they didn't play Oregon this year. I said a year ago I didn't want to see them on the schedule, and it's still here. So
yeah,
I would be fine if that game was never played again.
It hurts a little bit, though, doesn't it?
That's what happens when you leave your rival in the dust to literally choke on their own dust. So... You know, it's like I would say the same thing with the Cougs, man. Y'all left. And now we're supposed to pick up the pieces because you guys can pay us a lot?
I know, but for me, like 100+ years going back to the 1800s, these two places, Corvallis and Eugene, whether it's the College of Agriculture, isn't that what they used to be?
OAC, yeah.
OAC, like, just poof, gone. I'm glad they're playing. I'm just wondering, though, both teams into the future. How beneficial is that? All right, coming up next, Tyson Alger is going to be joining the big show from the I-5 corridor, talking more college football and a look ahead at the season that is on the way. That's next on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the Olympics are winding down, but still some fireworks. Oregon Duck winning the 1500, coming out of nowhere. Men's basketball is crushing everybody. And we have got 24 days until college football kicks off. Joining us now, friend of the program from the I-5 corridor, noted what would be an Olympics like fan? Are you like a rings head? But noted Olympic fan Tyson Alger now joining us here on the Big Show. Tyson, how we doing, bud? Rings. Who was I'm fantastic. You know, you just mentioned something right there. And talk about a real innovator that somebody who do you think maybe had the biggest innovation? The person who put Z like at the end of Boys to Men, or the guy who spelled dog DAWG? Who do you think had a bigger impact on the lexicon? No, I know. I think so. Because Washington, like they do the dogs like that. I know. I think Georgia does it as well. Boys to Men, like they kind of phased out really about 1998 with the Z as part of the S. Yep. Well, yeah, and so you had the boys with the Z, and it was a lot of people thought it was the number two, and it wasn't. It was the Roman numeral two, which is two capital I's. Then it was a tough one, boy. Aren't you glad you weren't doing pop culture articles in say I don't know 1992, because it would have been a lot of boys to men like trying to figure that one out. What? Really? Now again, not I had to Google it, but I do not believe Bone Thugs in Harmony. They did not go with the Z at the end of Thugs, but they did go with the N instead of in. So they're Bone Thugs in Harmony, like Guns N' Roses. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into some sports here in a moment, but you hit me. You just said something there with Bone Thugs and Harmony. Tyson Alger is joining us on the Big Show. This is the things you get when you come, especially on a Wednesday morning. Pre streaming, pre Napster, when you went and you essentially had to have faith in the group when you bought the entire album. Boy, was there ever a bigger dupe? Because Crossroads, which was a very incredibly popular song, and had, not a lot of people knew the words to it, but I think it was a crossover hit, and I think a lot of people who maybe were not familiar with the Bone Thugs and Harmony game went out and maybe bought East 1999 Eternal, which was the album, and the rest of the album did not have that theme, if you know what I'm talking about. Have you ever been duped by a single to buy the entire album and being like, this is not what I thought I was getting? Yeah. Um, sh- my in that same vein, the biggest dupe I ever got, Sugar Ray. That song Fly, and then you went and bought the album, and the album is not that song. It is not even close. I'm like, I thought we were gonna have cool beach vibes from the Southern California guys. Like, no, they are very hardcore. And then the next album they changed it, and they're like, turns out everybody liked that Fly song. Let's do more of that. But yeah, Sugar Ray's first album, bought the whole thing, and I'm like, yep, I got duped. You got my $11, Sugar Ray. Yes. Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Other thing we've been talking about today, high school mascots. Now, if I did my research correct, were you a Palmer Moose? Was that correct? So we found out. So this started because I felt like how Bulldogs and Eagles, just like everybody just decided we're going to be that. They are Bulldogs, Eagles, Wildcats, three of the top five in the country. Um, Moose seems fairly unique, but is Moose like the Bulldog of Alaska? Like just every conference had a team that's the Moose? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine, yeah, Bears and Eagles up there probably a lot, huh? Yeah. I I can't imagine they thrive in the cold climate. No. Yeah, the moose is loose. Should have been one of them, definitely. Mm. Local boy done good. Here comes Palmer's own Tyson Alger with his Substack fortune that he has amassed to share with the upcoming moose of the next generation to keep the Palmer vision alive. Does. This is fantastic stuff. Speaking of fantastic stuff, Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor is joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Have you watched the 30-minute movie that Oregon has put out? Have you sat down and watched episode 1 of Oregon football's streaming series that they have put out this morning? You skimmed it. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is one of the, and I'm going to sound like a homer here, but like I have been around Tyson for the entirety of this marketing experiment that Oregon has, and I say experiment because it is ongoing. It started with uniforms and billboards, and now uniforms and billboards are they're now throwbacks. Now it's kind of quaint, right? It's like, hey, remember when we used to do billboards? That was fun. Then it was, and then it was a lot of, I remember there was a very big deal about making custom comic book, and then it was now it was the big giant facilities because that pops on social media, and it is kind of amazing that of all the schools who had all the opportunities across the country, Oregon kind of looked at the landscape and goes, what do people do? They watch 30-minute shows on the internet. It's mostly Netflix and Hulu. They're really into that show, The Bear. Well, and Hard Knocks is kind of, let's just do our own thing. And it started last year with the game recaps, like the us versus them. I mean, it's amazing that Oregon has been able to kind of be out front on all these things, and that nobody else has really thought about, you know what, let's make our own Hard Knocks, or let's make our own game recaps and make it look like a Netflix show. Mm-hmm. Boy, Colorado's really kicking themselves right now. They are. I got to be so upset at in Boulder right now. Mm-hmm. Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One college football topic we've been talking about today. I don't know if you saw this. Lincoln Riley kind of hinted, and I think kind of dipped his toe in the water of like, hey, we're going to be playing in the Big Ten every year. Are we sure we want to play Notre Dame also every single year and essentially play a 10-game Big Ten schedule as opposed to a 9-game and everybody else is when we're trying to make the playoff? And it got me thinking, like, I'm glad Civil War is sticking around, and I'm glad that Oregon and Oregon State are going to be playing each other. But Tyson, if you maybe look into the future and squint a little bit and see maybe the potential of the Big 12 snagging Washington State and Oregon State with all their Pac-12 assets and bringing them into the conference, and in a landscape of 2024 and beyond where you have a 12-team playoff and it is much easier path to get there, do you think it's beneficial to both Oregon and Oregon State to keep a non-conference significant rivalry alive? I love rivalry. I don't want them to end it, but I'm just thinking from a practical standpoint in trying to make the playoff, it doesn't seem like it makes an awful lot of sense. I hope so. I mean, like, that's the part I like. It's my head and my heart, right? With USC, my heart says, of course you play Notre Dame. That's what USC does. But like, my head goes, they'd much rather play San Diego State, beat them by 40, and get into their Big Ten schedule and make the playoff. Mm-hmm. 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 I just wonder, like, for Oregon, I'm saying flip it. If you're Oregon State and you say, you know what, we go to the Big 12, we get a nice transfer to come in. We may, catch a good schedule. You go. I mean, they were 10-2 2 years ago, right? And potentially 10-2 is going to get you into the playoff if you're in a major conference. If you're Oregon State, I just go like tradition is great. I'm sure there's a good TV payoff for that game, and I'm sure there's probably an incentive and tickets and everything else. Are you sure you want to schedule that game if you ultimately do end up in the Big 12 because you're going to have to get to 10-2 to get into that playoff, which is possible, but again, why then have that game on the schedule every year? Every year, yeah. Producer Brendan's giving you a big nod of approval. Brendan's in his 20s, and two, Brenden wants that game completely off their schedule for the rest of his life. Which I understand where he's coming from, but there's like 100 and some years of Civil War tradition as well. But now they're playing it in September. Doesn't quite have the same feels. What is a good feel is talking to Tyson Alger each and every Wednesday and checking out the I-5 quarter. What do we got? What do we got coming down the quarter? How was the podcast numbers? How was the Myers bump, as they call it? Yeah. People show up wanting to hear about Oregon football, and they hear me talking about fried potatoes up and down the great state of Oregon, which is what I bring to the table. Bone Thugs and Harmony, yeah. There we go. I5corridor.com. There's a hyphen in there in between I and 5. You can just go to Tyson Alger, at Tyson Alger on Twitter or X. Follow the link. Subscribe to the Corridor. Follow him on Twitter and X, and listen to him each and every Wednesday on this particular program. Hey, Tyson, thanks so much, bud. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. There we go. Tyson Alger. We've got the RCA mailbag next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, so the school year is just around the corner, and it's important for students to have the tools that they need for a successful school year. So we've partnered with our good friends at Lazy Boy for the annual Stuff the Bus school supply drive. Now through August 19th, you can donate a backpack or 10 miscellaneous school supply items at any of the 6 local Lazy Boy locations. That includes Salem and Eugene, and you will receive up to 25% off your Lazy Boy purchase. Some exclusions do apply. The Salvation Army will then distribute your donations to local families in need, and as always, thank you for your generosity. All the details on the community page at ripcityradio.com. All right, here we go. It's time for the RCM mailbag. Boom. That's what I just said.
All right, firing up the big mailbag here
Yeesh.
on a Wednesday, Justin.
It is Wednesday.
Curious where you are on first impressions. For meeting a complete stranger, how important are they to you? So say someone is really nice to you in first impression. Does that stick with you? Or the opposite, like someone kind of a jerk, first time you meet them, you're like, oh, that's all I remember from that person, just a jerk.
I think the negative is most people, I want to believe, are fairly pleasant when you meet them. Now, I have had situations where I'm like, wow, that's maybe one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. And that sticks with me as well. But I think the negative is probably the one that sticks out the most. Now, I will say this. I like to think I give a good first impression. I'm terrible with names. Terrible with names. It's like, hi, I'm Kyle. Great. I was like 5 seconds later, what was that guy's name again? But yeah, I think if somebody is, I've said this before, it's something I could be better at, but I do have, you think you're better than me? Always kind of in the back of my brain. And so if you do act like you are better than me, or maybe you don't act like it, but maybe I take it that way, I maybe will hold on to it a little bit too long. So yeah, I guess I am a big first impression guy. Don't give me that you're better than me, because you ain't. You don't know where I've been. But yeah, probably more negative than the positive. Yeah, but I don't come across a lot of people who are, I would say, terrible people. But in this business, there is a hierarchy, and there are some people who are incredibly nice and relatable, and then there are some people who like to put you in your place, and I fight against that a lot. So yeah, that would be where I stand on that.
Yeah, I would say even just meeting complete strangers, whether it's the person at the fast food place, person at the grocery store. More times than not, people are a little rude these days.
I try to give some leeway, because again, I don't know what they've been going through. I don't know what's going on with their day. But if I know kind of where you are and what your deal is, I don't have a lot of leeway. Fast food service work, they might be having a terrible day, but. I don't know if I've had the same experience. Maybe we just run in different circles. Most people are fairly pleasant. It's got to be really bad for me to be like, that was incredibly rude. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess it's a superiority complex, right? So when I see people struggling in fast food, knowing something that I could do and did very well, I'm like, I don't have any patience for your issues. Like whenever I'm going somewhere, it's like, patience has a lot to do with first impressions for me too. So it's like if you see me and I'm waiting somewhere and you continue to make me wait when I see you being, like for instance, Justin, I had to get a couple flat tires fixed on my car.
Yeah, buddy.
This week. Awesome people over at this tire shop that I use, and they replaced it and all that. So I went to go get lunch and they text you. They say, your car is ready. Come pick up the keys. You don't need to sign anything. It is ready to go.
It is ready to go.
I go in there. It's like 10 people in line. And after about 15 minutes, I just lose it and I go, I am here to pick up anybody else, and everybody else in that line is dropping cars off. And if I didn't say, I'm here to pick up, I want to go, I don't know. I think it might still be waiting there, Justin.
I don't know if I would have been as bold, to be honest with you. The other place, because I am an observer, I observe everything. I am hyper aware. Sometimes Kelly will be like, "Are you listening to me?" I'm like, "No, I'm eavesdropping right now. Be quiet. I'm trying to observe," and she gets irritated with me. But not really superiority. It's entitlement is probably something that I notice a lot, and especially at like where I go to the gym every day. No big deal. I might have brought it up once or twice, but there's a general etiquette at a gym. We're all here trying to achieve the same goal, which is fitness. But like, I will very much notice if you feel like you are at a level above, like you come in entitled. Because at the gym, at least my gym, we share equipment, we share space. It's a community. It's a group fitness. And then there's sometimes some people walk in and they just feel like it is their personal time. And I'm like, but I normally don't say anything. I just think it. I just think it in the back of my mind. And then, maybe that first impression will stick with me a little bit longer than maybe it should. The other thing is like food service. I've always said there might not be nothing you can do. Like my order is just taking a while and there is literally nothing you can do. Rearrange some napkins or something. Just pretend to look busy. Because if I'm sitting there and you're sitting there, and I know maybe there's nothing like, hey, a burger or a piece of chicken cooks, it takes time. But if you don't, maybe rearrange some napkins or something.
And
just pretend to be like.
I mean, the generation that works.
It makes me feel better.
Yeah, the generation that works at fast food, Justin, it's, you guys should be thankful I'm here. And that was not the way it used to be.
That being said, shout out to my my Starbucks baristas. They're awesome. Fancy Coffee Friday coming up in a bit, but we've got a Thursday tomorrow. Big thanks to Tyson Alger from the I-5 Corridor who joined us on the big show today. Thanks to super producer Brenden. And we'll talk to you bright and early tomorrow morning here on 620 Rip City Radio.